Welcome to Coffee Talk. I am your host, MISHUMA, SABA, M.SABA, and this is our Cultural Variety Podcast. Stay tuned. Peace. And welcome to Coffee Talk Podcast, the Cultural Variety Podcast show. And I am your host, MISHUMA, SABA, M.SABA. And this is our Cultural Variety Podcast show. Let me go ahead and do that one more time, our intro. Due to the fact that I know that I just put this microphone into the system, so I do apologize on that. But welcome to the show, Coffee Talk Podcast. This is the Cultural Variety Podcast show, and I am your host, MISHUMA, SABA, M.SABA, and it's our Cultural Variety Podcast show. How y'all doing today? Thank you. And welcome to the show, Coffee Talk Podcast. This is our Saturday night podcast here. And I want to dive right back in to a topic that is being spoke about throughout the country, especially during these times right now. And what times am I speaking of? I'm speaking of the economical times that we are going through, as far as rent going up, as far as when you go to the grocery store and you're seeing 3-pound bags, y'all, a 3-pound bag of chicken, depending where you go, can run you about $15 to $20. So I wanted to talk about what we've covered last week on our Monday show, on our cultural studies show, and that was this word, polygyny. It's talked about. It's a big discussion, just as big as reparations right now. And tonight, as we were getting ready to go through production and figure out what content we're going to bring to the show this evening, we realized that right now in media, with Kanye and Kyrie going through their fiascos, the word that is also spoken is Hebrew Israelite. So you're starting to hear this word, Hebrew Israelite. And basically, a Hebrew Israelite is a Jew. Some say a black Jew. You know, I don't want to differentiate, especially when we know our story. So, a Hebrew Israelite is, to me, our people, basically. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, we have so many different titles. I don't want to just focus on that. You know, a lot of people call it, so, well, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this. And that's how the great divide comes in. And that's how they keep us separated, you know. But I thought that I want to touch on that and how polygamy is introduced, carried out amongst the African Hebrew women in polygyny. And what better else than to do that with the book called We Want Our Sisters. We want for our sisters what we want for ourselves. And this is by a great author by the name of Patricia Dixon Spear. This is what the book looks like here. And I thought chapter 5 of this book that talks about the divine marriage would be something that we would read today here at Coffee Talk Podcast, because we're just like any other show. You know, we got birthed into this podcast world by a show that would have been considered a podcast had it been out in this era of technology. It's called the Reading Rainbow. A lot of your parents know about the Reading Rainbow with host LeVar Burton. LeVar Burton was actually a character in the movie Roots. He played as Kunta Kinte. And he enjoyed having a show like Reading Rainbow. It focuses on reading, which helps us to not be illiterate. You know, literacy is a $2.2 trillion business. And let me rephrase that because I'm stumbling over my words. It's a $2.2 trillion business that people cannot read. And so we want to definitely help to change that narrative. And no other way than to do that than it's by, you know, giving you the culture, giving you the flavor. And that's what we do here at Coffee Talk Podcast, is we like to dive into the flavor and we give it to you just like that. But on this Saturday night, what are y'all drinking on? What are y'all doing, man? Let me know. Go ahead and hit the comments. Hit the like button, share the video, and definitely make sure you subscribe to the show, Coffee Talk Podcast, the Cultural Variety Podcast show. You know, we definitely would appreciate that. All right, so listen, if you're new to the show, right, we never start the show without giving it its flavor. We never start the show without giving it its wise words. You know what I'm saying? So tonight, just like last night, if you missed it, check out last night's episode. We was here Friday night for Grown Folks Night. So we definitely dove in and we talked about all types of current events last night. But I stated last night that this weekend is your choice when it comes to flavor. That's right. So I didn't choose a smoothie, a coffee, some wine or anything like that. I'm allowing you, the fans, the supporters, the viewers, to go ahead and pick your flavor for the night. So tonight, for tonight, go ahead and put in the comments what you're drinking on, what you're sipping on. That could be water, wine, Kool-Aid. It could be a smoothie. It could be an espresso. It could be coffee, cappuccino, your favorite beer, whatever you drinking on. But I tell you what, you come on in, kick your feet up, relax, and enjoy yourself here in our humble home here at Coffee Talk Podcast. So whatever you drinking on, that's the flavor. Whatever you drinking on, that's the flavor. And the fact that you here at Coffee Talk Podcast makes it flavorful. You dig? All right. So now let's go ahead and just jump right into the wise word. The wise word is from what I like to say, one of the greatest MCs of all time, pound for pound, one or two on the list of MCs. And that's big. You know, rap is 50 years old now? About that, rap is about 50 years old as a collective. And to say that this artist, pound for pound, is either one or two, depending on who you speak to, about who are the greatest MCs in the rap game, in rap history. This person was born, and he's still active, by the way. First of all, before I announce who it is, he's still active, by the way. And he also set a world's record, y'all. That's right. He set a world's record by charting in the top 50 4 different decades. So he's been around that long, 4 different decades. He done dropped jewels in the top 50, top 100, every rip, going gold or platinum, every rip. And then this year alone, he's dropped his second album of the year and third album in the last 2 years. He said he was back in the studio. And that is King's Disease 3. But this is no other than, again, born September 14th, 1973 is his birth date. He's been active in the rap game for a long time. Hailed as one of the greatest lyricists of all time. Hailed as one of the greatest MCs of all time, no other than Nas Escobar. So tonight we're going to choose Nas's wise words. And so Nas's wise words is this. He states, I'm capable of anything. My imagination can give me wings. I'm capable of anything. My imagination can give me wings. I'm capable of anything. My imagination can give me wings. What is your thoughts on tonight's wise words by Nas? Go ahead and leave a comment in the like button. Definitely share this video. Tell your friends, text them, call them. Hey, Coffee Talk Podcast is on. If you ain't doing nothing, check out the podcast. No doubt. So again, Nas's wise words is I'm capable of anything. My imagination can give me wings. And the reason why we chose to have that as the wise words tonight is because I want you to really understand that everything that you do starts with a thought. It starts with a thought. And as you start to manifest it, you start to give it legs, you start to give it wings, and that thought takes off. And eventually that thought, through your manifestation, can become solid. It can become a creation. It can become physical. It can become solid, as I stated, all from a thought. So what do I mean by that, and what kind of example can I set forth? Well, you can state that, one time in your life you thought you would have children. That was a thought. Some of y'all used to play house. Some of y'all used to play doctor. Some of y'all used to talk about whenever you became adult, how your adult life would be and how many children you would have. So that was a thought that you then manifested to the right time, and it became a reality. So that's why I chose the wise words from Nas tonight. And the wise words is, I'm capable of anything. My imagination can give me wings. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive in because a lot of people are hearing a lot of new words for their for their vocabulary. And I apologize. I'm just stumbling over my words, like my lips are just in the way. You know what I'm saying? My lips are just in the way. I can't get the words out. Yeah, I mean, it's Saturday. We like to laugh at ourselves. We like to laugh. But all right, so listen, let's go ahead and jump right into the show. Because again, like I stated, this is a good show tonight. We're definitely going to learn a few things. And, you may have some questions, so go ahead and fire those questions away. We'll try to answer them as much as we can. Make sure that the questions that you ask pertain exactly to what we're discussing. So again, tonight we're discussing the divine marriage, the African Hebrew Israelite woman in polygamy. And that's chapter 5 from author Patricia Dixon Spear and her book, We Want for Our Sisters What We Want for Ourselves. All right, so let's begin, shall we? The African Hebrew Israelite are a community of African Americans who are currently living in Israel under the leadership of Ben Israel. After Ben Ami had a vision in 1967, he led an exodus of 400 African Americans out of the United States. They settled in the interior of Liberia to purge themselves for the magnates they had acquired under cultural domination in American society, or in their own words, were held captive, according to Haggadah and Adaya in a book of 1992. In 1969, some of them made the journey to Israel. They have been living there for more than 30 years and currently reside in 3 towns, the Dimona, the Arad, and the Matspi Ramon. They also have extensions throughout the United States and in the Caribbean and West Africa. The African Hebrew Israelites say they are the descendants of Abraham, one of the biblical children of Israel. They believe that as a result of their disobedience to the laws and the commandments of God, the children of Israel have been held captive by various nations. Since many had migrated to West Africa, some were brought to the United States through the transatlantic slave trade. The African Hebrew Israelites are guided by the laws of Yahweh that were passed down through Moses to the descendants of the 12 sons of Israel, one of whom was Judah, the ancestor of the Jews. Thus, their practices, with some variations, are the same as those practiced under Judaism. In fact, it was pointed out that most members of the African Hebrew Israelites are the descendants of the tribe of Judah, although a few are from other tribes as well. The African Hebrew Israelites, however, distinguish between Judaism, which is a religion, and righteousness. So they distinguish between religion and righteousness. Those are two separate things. Religion and righteousness. Religion, people, is something that is man-made, something that is created. Righteousness is something that you have at the beginning. It's more spiritual. So I just want to add that. Let's go ahead and continue. Religion requires that one be obedient to the traditions. Righteousness requires that one to be obedient to God. I'm going to read that again. Religion requires that one be obedient to the traditions. Righteousness requires one to be obedient to God. Consequently, the African Hebrew Israelite does not practice religion, but practices a way of life based on the will and instruction of God. As under Judaism, some of the laws the African Hebrew Israelites observe include the Sabbath, which is the day of rest that begins on Friday at sunset and continues until nightfall on Saturday, and the holy days that include but are not limited to the Passover, which is delivery from slavery in Egypt, the Shavuot, the spring harvest and God's gift of the Torah, the memorial blowing of the trumpets, the Yom Kippur, the Day of the Atonement, and the Sukkot, which feasts of booths commemorating life in the wilderness. A basic practice of Judaism is compliance with the dietary laws as well, given by Moses to eat only animals with cloven hooves that chew the cud and seafood with scales or fins. The diet of the African Hebrew Israelites differs, though, in that they are vegans. This means they eat no food that contains animal products. In addition to their strict diet, the community is self-contained and has an economic system based on a principle of all things in common. The overall goal of the African Hebrew Israelites is to build a new world or kingdom based on the laws of God. So let's go ahead and talk about divine marriage. The women making the adjustments, the relationship between wives, the benefits of having a sister wife, and we're going to try to go as far as we can, and this might even turn into a two-part study. So we may have to come back on Monday. But let's go ahead and begin as we discuss divine marriage. Divine marriage based on the African Hebrew Israelite women in polygamy. Divine marriage. Marriage in the African Hebrew Israelites community is practiced under what is referred to as a divine marriage, which simply means a marriage that is pleasing unto God. Divine marriage consists of 3 stages. The first stage is the divine pursuit, which means that a man may pursue a woman or a woman a man. During this stage, the two individuals spend time getting to know each other. Apart from holding hands, physical intimacy is not allowed. If both individuals develop a mutual strong feeling, they enter into what they call the mode de suite, which is similar to engagement. A period of sanctification that lasts a minimum of 70 days. Physical intimacy is also not allowed at this stage. Once the couple enters the mode de suite, an announcement is made and the individuals are removed from the community of being single, brothers and sisters. This means that no one can pursue either of them, nor they anyone. During the mode de suite, the couple must meet with a priest at least 10 times. The couple may attend some of the meetings together, and they may attend some of them alone. There are several objectives in meeting with the priest. The first is for the individuals to learn the primacy of the presence of the Creator in the development of the relationship. The priest ensures that the individuals understand the larger moral obligation, not only to each other, but to the community. Because the sessions are based on open and frank discussions, both individuals can discuss issues or concerns, and the priest inquires into personal matters, including sex and fertility issues. Spiritual capability is emphasized over physical and emotional capability to ensure that the couple understands that once vows are made, the relationship is internal. After these meetings, the priest determines if the individuals are ready. The period of the mode de suite ends when the couple either gets married or ends the engagement. A unique feature of divine marriage is that a man may marry more than one wife. Such a practice was accepted among the ancient Hebrew Israelites. However, centuries of contact with various Christian European nations, Romans banned polygamy in AD 285 and again in AD 393. So one of the things you want to be asking yourself, people, as you follow this or have any questions, is why did the Romans ban polygamy in AD 285 and again in AD 393? And if you're not a Roman or a Greek, this is something that may interest you to want to find out. And then I'm going to repeat that last sentence. However, centuries of contact with various Christian European nations affected a gradual movement away from polygamy among the Jews. The African Hebrew Israelites, however, continued to follow the customs of polygamy in the manner of the ancient children of Israel, and they are generally given no status from the Israeli government, though there is no official recognition of it. So they don't have status when they say they want to be polygamous, but there's also no recognition of it by the Israeli government. Why is that? Because polygamy is a way of life. It's more spiritual. It's not religion. And that's something that we had just discussed earlier on the differences between religion and righteousness amongst the Black Hebrew Israelite women. Although marriage and divorce are handled by the religious authorities of the various communities in Israel, in some matters, the state supersedes the laws of the religious communities. Muslims, for example, are allowed to have up to 4 wives. However, only one wife's name appears on the state registry. With regard to their perspective on polygamy, the women are guided by the principle. We want for our sisters what we want for ourselves. As one crown sister, the highest level of the political hierarchy that a woman may hold, put it, what we want is happiness, and this is what we want for our sisters. Although a man may take on more than one wife, he cannot consider doing so until after a year of marriage to his already existing wife. In the year with his new wife, he does all he can to strengthen her. When he becomes interested in marrying another woman or women, or when a woman becomes interested in marrying him, the potential wife may spend time getting to know his already existing wives and children. The already existing wives may also sit with the man and the prospective wife in session with the priest. Overall, the African Hebrew Israelites believe that one of the greatest blessings of divine marriage is that it allows the women to be guided by men of God and provides images of strong men emotionally, physically, and spiritually security for women. Let me know if that part was divine marriage, and that's what we were discussing. Leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on the difference between religion and righteousness. Let me also hear what your thoughts are on the prospective wife, meaning wife number two, getting to know the first wife and her children prior to getting married to the husband. Leave your comments. Next, the woman. The woman. The population of the African Hebrew Israelite community in Israel consists of approximately 1,600 members, with 25% of the families being polygamous. I conducted a 2 to 4 hour interviews with women in 6 families during my 2-week visit to the community in Israel. Women in 3 of the families were interviewed separately, and those in the remaining 3 families were interviewed together. A total of 18 women were interviewed formally. Their ages ranged from 26 to 59, with a median age of 42 and a median age of 43. One family had 4 wives, 2 had 3 wives, and 4 had 2. The women were, by profession, a nurse, a midwife, a nutritionist, a teacher, and a dancer. There was business owners, and the rest was homemakers. I also had informed discussions with women throughout the community, making the adjustment. I was first interested in finding out the women's initial attitudes towards polygamy and how they were able to adjust it. The responses varied according to the stage the women entered the community. For women who were there in the early years, there was a great deal of resistance in the beginning. What contributed to this was the way their husbands introduced new wives. In some instances, first wives learned of the second wife after the relationship was already underway. And in one instance, after the husband and new wife had already married. Thus, the first wives had not agreed to a second wife and had no input into the selection of the person with whom they would be sharing their husbands and children. An example of this is a woman who made the journey to Liberia before her husband. She explained, "I was looking forward to spending some time together because we were always busy with the community. When he came, he had a wife coming too, 2 weeks behind him." Similarly, another woman explained, he had already found somebody and made up his mind. So he said, "I have somebody I want you to, try and develop a relationship with her and get to know her because I'm bringing her into the family." In some instances, the second wives were deceived about the status of the first wife. When one woman, for example, asked her potential husband whether he was married, he told her, "I'm married to God." She described how she discovered that men could marry more than one wife. Let's discuss it. She said, we went over to M, and when we went in, he introduced me to the brother and he introduced me to the sister, but nobody said this is his wife and this is his wife. So we sat there that evening. We talked, myself and the sisters. We talked, and in my mind, I was saying, that's his wife? No, that's his wife. I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't ask them. So when we were going back to the temple to get my car, I asked him, which one of those sisters is his wife? He said both of them. At that point, I didn't say nothing else because I couldn't believe it. 2 women in the same house? I couldn't even conceive that. And he didn't say nothing, and I didn't say nothing. It tripped me out, but I didn't bring it up no more. She described how she eventually found out that the man she was with was still with his wife. She said, I found out before I left, but by this time we were married already. By chance, one day we were looking at some pictures that had come in from the land, and they were saying, oh girl, look at so-and-so. Here's so-and-so. I asked, who? Who's that? They said, oh, that's so-and-so. I asked, are they married? And somebody replied, yeah, they're married to whoever so-and-so. Then I said, who is this? Somebody said, that's Kay. Then I said, who's she married to? Then they looked at me. So anyway, I said, well, who's she? Who's her husband? Then they stopped. They turned around and looked at me like, you mean you don't know? That was before I got there. So then I realized that I was involved in something that I really wasn't prepared for because I had no previous knowledge. Although she was confused about the whole matter, and even admitted that she didn't want to be bothered with no man and his wife because one knew how those situations were, and she didn't want to be involved in that. She decided to go ahead with it because she thought his already existing wife would understand because she had been in the truth for 4 years and knew about her. She, however, continued to question, asking herself, how am I supposed to treat her? And she still couldn't even imagine being married to a man that had a wife. Unfortunately, she did not know that the first wife did not know about her either, nor had she accepted the idea of her husband having another wife. Another woman explained that in the early stages, although some wives knew that divine marriage included polygyny, many did not think it would happen to them and were in denial about it. When asked if she knew the community practiced polygyny, she explained they had mentioned that brothers can have more than one wife. It was new then. This was something that had never been done before. Sisters would say for years that they didn't know anything about it. Then it began to come around the family. When asked if the first wife knew whether the husband was pursuing her, she responded, well, in actuality, she knew, but she was not accepted of it and did not realize the seriousness of it. I began meeting the family and everything. But by the time we went to meet his wife, she was like, I don't know anything about this. Although the women initially resisted polygamy and even organized against it, it appears that as divine marriage became more structured, the men persisted in bringing in new wives. The women began to see value in it and came to accept it. Emphasis on the vision of the kingdom and spiritual development were key here. One woman said it is part of the kingdom. She pointed out, I was in pursuit of the kingdom, and one day it just came to me that, hey, I'm talking about following this, and I believe in this, and I believe in that, but I'm separating things and leaving things out. the parts that I didn't want. If I'm accepting it, I've got to accept the truth as the whole. You can't separate anything from it. So at that point, I realized that I had to accept everything and just prayed for the right mind to do whatever I had to do. Another woman also described how prayer helped her. We had been married for 18 years before the second wife came into the family, and it was something new to me. I had to learn about it. I had to pray because in that society, we were accustomed to the man having one wife. Of course, now we all know that men had more than one woman, but we were not accustomed to living with each other. So I had to get an adjustment in my mind as to, could I accept it? Could I get an understanding with it? Because like I said, I was also just coming into the kingdom, learning about the kingdom, learning about the guidelines and how to really share and how to be sisters with someone. As with others, the most crucial factor for this woman was that in spite of her husband taking on a new wife, it was important to feel that he still loved her. I had to talk and really get an understanding with my Lord how women refer to their husbands, because he was learning too. And basically what I told him was I just wanted him to be truthful. That was the most important thing. I wanted him to give us both consideration and have balance and judgment in his decisions. So after talking to him, he said, I love you for your attributes, and I love S for her attributes. But me loving her does not end my love for you. You have been with me 18 years already, and we already have children. We had 2 children at that time, and I was pregnant with the 3rd child. And he said, I love you. So with that understanding, I prayed. What also helped some women adjust to polygyny was that they knew it was common in African American communities in the United States. They knew that men had other women. What they were not used to, however, was it being done openly. As the women above indicated, they were not used to the idea of having to live with the other woman. Those who came into the community later in this development seemed to be more open to polygyny for the very reasons. When one woman who entered the kingdom approximately 13 years after the exodus from America was asked her impression of polygyny when she first came to Israel, her response was this: I didn't have a problem with it because most men in the world had another girlfriend, another woman also indicated. I can't think of any time in my relationship with my fiance from the world that he didn't have another woman. I feel that the way they talked about it coming into the community was a little more honest. So I'm gonna pause right there just to pull out a couple key words that if you're truly listening to this, you're gonna see some of the words that are positive in this nature. One of them is that, like she just stated, she said, I feel that the way they talked about it coming into the community was a little bit more honest. Honesty. Women like honesty. And as we all know, and this is no knock on monogamy, one man, one woman, but a lot of our relationships fail in our communities because of what? A lack of honesty. A lack of honesty. You put your whole heart into this guy or whatever, and this guy's been lying to you the whole time. Wouldn't you rather have a choice to decide if you want to be there or not? Absolutely. Another woman said, I didn't have a problem with it because most men in the world had other women. And this could be from her childhood that she recognized this. The fact of the matter is she doesn't have the wolves over her eyes like most of us do. Most of us say, I ain't gonna share no man, but you really are already doing that. But there's some type of ego thing or something, that some cognitive dissonance that makes it just you want to feel like you're the only one. There are also those who were raised in the community in Israel This means that not only are they socialized in polygamy, but they also have been raised in such households. One young woman, however, has spent 8 years in America. When asked how her friends in the United States reacted when she told them about the lifestyle, her response was, people just think it is unheard of, yet they can't have girlfriends and be going with a woman and married, sleeping around. They just don't bring it to the house, but they do it. It isn't called divine marriage, but they do the same thing. What's your thoughts on that, people? What's your thoughts on that? Is that something that you could entertain? Is it something that you're starting to realize that men do this anyway? I mean, oh, relationship after relationship after relationship. Why was your relationship ended? Because you caught your man or your woman messing with someone else. A lot of pressure be put on these men because these men are trying to cater to you, but a lot of these men be losing themselves just within that. And that's why in the African American communities, we are only getting married at less than 10%. These are alarming numbers. This means that at 9% right now, if you have a kid that's 8 years old or whatnot, by the time they become a full-fledged adult, they're not even going to be thinking about marriage in the particular terms of going to see a judge and, hey, it's just me and her and blah, blah, blah. There's all kind of key elements that play into this and why this change is starting to pick up momentum and starting to occur all over the nation. I'm not going to say all over the world because 342 of the 348 countries, they go ahead and practice this. Let's continue. Relationships between the wives. Besides how they eventually accepted polygamy, I was interested in knowing how wives eventually came to accept one another and what their relationships are like. Initially, having a second wife imposed on them caused a lot of hurt and pain, and it causes a lot of hurt and pain for the first wives. This resulted in a great deal of resentment, which strained relationships between them and their husbands and their new wives. Because of the love they hold for their kingdom and their husband, however, they eventually accepted their new wives and even developed friendships. The women now participate in choosing wives for their husband, express a great deal of love and respect for each other, and they refer to each other as sister wives. So yeah, it started out rocky. However, they started to go ahead and make it work, as you're hearing in this story. An example of how second wives was received by first wives in the early stages of the kingdom is that of one family which took 16 years to get to work together, live together, and have some harmony. Although the first wife does not feel that she and her sister wife had a friendship all those years, she did note that it's kind of hard not to love somebody that you live with. The love for the children, helping one another, doing for one another, and just being there. When the second wife was asked how she initially felt about the first one, she responded, "First of all, I still felt that I had been done wrong because I would have preferred, I would have felt better had I come into knowing. I felt that I had been cheated, but then what I did, I said, okay, leave that alone. Ain't no sense in you going on dealing with that. Now, where do we go from here? How do I treat her? I had to keep asking myself, how do I treat her? The only thing that kept coming to my mind was treat her the way that you would want to be treated. So I started trying to do that. But in the beginning, she was hurt too, because she's here one day and then here is somebody telling her about her husband. I mean, that ain't no easy pill to swallow. So you have to look at both sides of it. You can't just look at one side like that because it's not easy. Interestingly, it was the first wife who was initially against the second wife, who years later encouraged a third wife to become part of the family. She explained, I had chosen her because at one point she was fixing to get involved with another family. I told her she was getting ready to make a mistake. That wasn't her family. The third wife agreed. I could very well have gone in the wrong direction. She saw me sitting out one evening talking to someone else. She grabbed me. She said, this is our family here. She pulled me away and put something in my mind. From that point on, she kept pressing it on her mind until she finally made the decision to join the family. A second wife explained that when she married her husband, his first wife took it pretty hard. However, they understood that was the way it was going to be. A key was that she and the first wife talked. She explained further, we talked about everything and shared our thoughts together, and our being that close helped the brother to better understand how to deal with the two of us. In this particular instance, the relationship between the wives outlasted the relationships with the husband. Their husband eventually left the kingdom. Remaining together, they were put back into the sisterhood, which meant that they could pursue again or be pursued. In fact, they were so close, it was suggested by members of the community that they should have married the same brother again. They both married 3 years later, however, to different men. In some instances, the women are already good friends. This makes it relatively easy for them to sustain a good relationship after they marry the same man. In other instances, as above, the women may pick out a sister wife. For example, when one woman who already has a new sister wife was asked whether she thinks her husband will eventually marry a third wife, her response was, oh, most definitely. I have already picked her out. I love her dearly. In other instances, women encourage their husbands to marry out of love and concern for a sister. With regard to a third sister wife, one woman explained, she needed to get married. She had been single for a while, and she was the type of sister that was so giving that she deserved a good family. Her sister wife expressed his similar thoughts. I always wanted him to marry her. I had been trying to get her to marry him for years because she's a good sister. And still, in other instances, when a man begins pursuing a woman, she will introduce herself to the already existing wives and spend time getting to know the family. When one wife was asked how she felt about her husband pursuing the second wife after a year into the marriage, she responded, it was all right. I didn't have a problem with that. She came home and she let me know that she was interested in him. With this woman, as with others, initially the concern had to do with the difference in age. Her potential sister wife was 20 years younger than her. She, however, eventually resolved, it really has more to do with personality. I actually have a younger spirit. I'm fun, whereas she sits back and has the children, I told her. You are the old one. Another wife also described how she dealt with an incoming wife who was 20 years younger than herself. My main concern, too, was the age, because I have a son 32 and she's 32. And when she first started coming around and our Lord was talking to her, I mentioned this to her. I said, well, do you realize that we have a son that's your age? I'm somewhat concerned about your age. Are you going to be able to make the adjustment? And also I mentioned, naturally, at that age group, you want to still be partying. I know I did. Going to various parties that they have here, and with our Lord being older, I told her, he might not want to go to all those parties. I know he's going now because when they're pursuing, they got to show they still got it. But when he gets married, he probably will want to stay home and relax. You might still want to go out partying, and how you going to feel about that? She said that she could make the adjustment. She was okay with it. She didn't see anybody else, and she knew that he was an older brother. that she loved him and felt that she could adjust. After she said that, and after I discussed it with him, I said, it's going to be an adjustment for you. And they still had their mind set, and I moved on. When this woman's sister wife was asked about her feelings with regard to the husband bringing in a younger wife, she said, they say it's a man's world, and it's like that all over the world, because he might not be marrying anyone younger. That doesn't mean that he's not out there. So it's just real. It's brought home. You know who the person is. You know your attributes. You know her hygiene. You know her personality. So it makes it better. It doesn't have to be in the dark. It doesn't have to be in the dark. So again, it's about being open. It's about being honest. It's about building an economic. It's about family structure. It's not like how a lot of people suffer right now. A lot of people, 70% of our relationships don't last. That's 3/4. So you wonder why a lot of you are single. One is because there's a lot of women more than men. And two, maybe it's just not compatible for that man. Let's continue. I was also interested in how the wives adjusted to each other's differences, to each other's different ways of doing things. I was particularly interested in how already existing wives adjust to the new wife, understanding that everybody has their own personality and spirit. Everybody does things different, and being open-minded and striving towards oneness were thematic. When one woman was asked how she felt coming into a situation in which the routine was already established, she explained, "R had established an order. She had a way she kept the children, folded the clothes, and did the ironing. She had to adjust and say, it may not be my way, but it's still getting done. We try not to criticize because it is not the way we do it. We are different people. You may put something different in your cornbread that I don't, but if it's good, say hallelujah." The women were asked what they find most difficult about being in a polygyny. Someone else being attentive to their husband is one woman explained. I guess I was just so used to being just us, the sharing. All of a sudden you look up and it's not just you anymore. When you have been with him for 10 years, you get comfortable and relaxed. It's like, okay, baby, I'll do your hair when I get to it. Now, all of a sudden, it is someone running to do it. I think to make a personal and spiritual space for another person in the family is really a growth process. It's really a growth process. It is an adjustment, but it is now more easy. I asked this woman how having a new wife affects her space psychologically. She pointed out the importance of the relationship with her husband and said, I feel that I have my own space. I'm secure in myself, in my personality, in my relationship with my Lord, and I'm not concerned about anybody taking my space because I feel that my space will always be there. Another adjustment is assuming responsibility for children when one has none. This may be particularly different for those who have a career, business, or like to travel. A woman who is in her third or newest wife stated that although she loves the sense of family that her sister wives provide, I have 15 children. I have 15 children and I have to answer to these things. I think that was the hardest adjustment because I like freedom. When one woman married, she had no children, but her sister wife had 6. She, however, loves the children and treats them as her own. She stated, I never separated it. It wasn't like I didn't have any children. When I got married, I had 6 children. That meant when I went to the store, I bought enough for 6 children. In fact, some women spend so much time with the children of their sister wives that others in the community have difficulty distinguishing whether or not they are their biological children. I was also interested in how the women adjusted to assuming responsibility for new children after they after their own have already reached the age of maturity. One woman has 3 children who have already reached adulthood, and her sister wife has 4, the oldest being 7 years old. When asked how she feels about raising children all over again, she pointed out that some women are so attached to the children of their sister wives that even the children get confused about which mother is the biological parent. In her case, her sister's wife's child thinks she is her brother's biological mother and tells people in the community that her natural mother just has a spiritual connection with him. The boy also thinks she is his biological mother. The women were also asked how conflicts are resolved and differences handling. They seem to have the same solutions. One pointed out, we come together in our love for him. We come together in our love for him. We come together in our love for him. That's an important piece, because so many times you have to ask yourself in relationships, are you really in it for him? Or you just want something out of it? Do you really love him, or are you worried about the other woman, your sister wife? The focus point should be that you continue to love your man. Your sister wife, her focus point is that she loves that man also. It doesn't have to cross into what you're thinking about what she's doing, or what she's thinking about, or what you're doing. That doesn't come into play. The focus is loving that man. Another woman said, if there is a problem, you go ahead and air it out. We all have the freedom to say how we feel with regards to differences. This woman continued, if there is something she is adamant about, I will give in. And if I'm adamant about something, she will give in, whether it concerns the children or the house. Next up, the benefits of having a sister wife. Are y'all with me so far? It's been very educational, very great story. We're going to talk about the benefits of having a sister wife, and then we're going to go ahead and end the show for tonight. But we're going to definitely, in about another week, we'll be going ahead and finishing the part of the chapter 5 here. Again, this is Coffee Talk Podcast, a cultural variety podcast show, and I am your host, MISHUMA SABA, M. SABA, and this is our cultural variety podcast show. Tonight we are discussing the divine marriage of African Hebrew Israelite women in polygyny. Last paragraph. The benefits of having sister wives. The benefits of having sister wives is our discussion. Research on polygamy among African women shows that women find several benefits to being in a polygamous marriage. This includes assistance with child care, husband care, and domestic tasks, companionship, increased wealth, and a familiar relationship with women with whom the husbands may have extramarital affairs. I was therefore interested in finding out what women in the African Hebrew Israelite community see as the benefits of having sister wives. With a few variations, the benefits are similar to those among African women. The African Hebrew Israelite woman cited the sense of family that comes from having sister wives and their children, particularly if one does not have children of her own. They also like having a helpmate for childcare and household responsibilities. In addition, they like having someone to help provide the physical and emotional needs of their husband. However, before expanding on this, let me first discuss the responsibilities of the women in the kingdom. As indicated previously, the African Hebrew Israelite live in a self-contained community. They own a soybean factory, which manufactures a variety of soybeans products that are distributed throughout Israel. They also have a sewing center, a cafeteria that serves more than 600 children 2 hot meals 6 days per week, a school, and a house of life, a natural birthing center. Although the sewing center manufactures most of the clothing worn by members of the community, some wives make most of the clothing for their families. For example, I met a woman with 8 or 9 children. She, her husband, and the children had on matching outfits. The women are also responsible for cooking and making basic foods from scratch, such as mayonnaise, ketchup, and salad dressing. Besides cooking, sewing, and other domestic duties, women are responsible for child care. In addition, they must provide emotional, physical, and domestic support to their husbands. Some women also work outside the home, within the community, and outside of it. I want to pause there for a moment, because so many people that want to bring fear, jealousy, and envy because they don't have the knowledge of this way of life. They always want to say, well, can you take care of 2, 3 women? And it sounds so corny and disrespectful, because they always have to put a money sign on it. And they think that a husband, and I think they get this out of Christianity, and they try to mix it into something that, again, polygamy is not a religion. It's just about righteousness. And I think they get this and they try to mix it up with other people's ideologies or other people's righteousness. And they say the silliest things like, can you afford us? First of all, ain't no grown person going to take care of another grown person. I don't know why you guys get turned out so much by that. You know, you learned that from your colonizer. Do you know you learned that from Walt Disney? Do you know you learned that from Euros? The same Euros that disbanded the idea of polygamy back in, 325 AD? The same Romans, as we discussed earlier in the topic. It says Romans banned polygamy in 285 AD and again in 393 AD. Why? We'll get to that on another episode. So as I finish this last part of the paragraph, I'd like to say thank you all for tuning in to Coffee Talk Podcast. It has been a long show, but it has been an informative show. And you now should be able to be a little bit more knowledgeable about the African Hebrew Israelite woman and what we call divine marriage and polygyny. Some women also work outside the home, within the community and outside of it. Within the community, they are nutritionists, healers, and are responsible for childbirth and other health-related matters. They work in the sewing center. They operate the cafeteria where their children eat and are largely teachers. Regardless of her work within or outside of the community, including domestic and extracurricular activities, each sister is required to commit a minimum of 6 hours a week to the community. Each sister is required to commit a minimum of 6 hours to the community. Why? Because again, polygamy is not about sex. Polygamy is about economics. Polygamy is about family. Polygamy is about sisterhood. And on top of that, it's also about community. How many of y'all that have an established man-woman relationship, if you have that, because again, a lot of you are single, but how many of y'all that are in a relationship, how many of y'all have a commitment to giving back to the community? See, a lot of people sit behind keyboards and they say what they want to do in the community, but are you really involved out there? Are you really involved in your community and not just tearing it down, not just talking about it, but actually out there helping some young man, helping some young woman, helping some elderly person, helping some community part, being a voice in your community? How many of y'all are doing that? Make sure you leave that in the comments. Overall, I am compelled to say that these women work. Having sister wives helps them to meet many obligations. So I hope you enjoyed our story tonight. Again, this is chapter 5 of the book We Want for Our Sisters What We Want for Ourselves by author Patricia Dixon Spears. Please support her and make sure you go out and get this book. Buy this book for a friend or for yourself. But make sure you dive in and just go ahead and take a reading. Nobody's trying to force you in polygyny. But we're also trying to talk about what's going on here in North America. Right now, the food prices are going sky high. And for the last 2 years, a lot of our kids have not been reading. Math scores are down. Reading scores are down. A lot of males are out here without a father figure. A lot of our sisters are out here without a father figure. So they don't feel they have support. They don't feel that they have somebody that believes in them, somebody that inspires them, somebody that speaks life into them. The suicide rates has been going up, as well as the mental illnesses cases have been on a rise. Yes, I believe in one man, one woman relationships, but I also don't knock polygyny either. It's strange how people can talk about a polygyny relationship, but you're open to the ideas of 2 men getting married. You're open to the ideas of 2 women getting married, but you have a problem if a man wants more than one wife. You also try to cast it as if it's evil, which is not. And all of those fears are being debunked right now. The more and more we start to study this natural activity. Next week, we will be talking about this again on our cultural studies night, which is Monday. And when we start up again, we'll be talking about the domestic tasks and child care. We'll be talking about husband care. We'll be talking about companionship. And then we will end there. I would like to go ahead and thank you again for supporting and stopping by and just showing your love and appreciation and your gratitude for our show. What show is it? Coffee Talk Podcast, the Cultural Variety Podcast Show. And I am your host, MISHUMA SABA, M.SABA. And this is our Cultural Variety Podcast. I would like to go ahead and thank you by throwing up the universal peace sign. Make sure that whatever you have, any comments that you would like to know a little bit more about, go ahead and drop them in the comment section. Make sure you share the video. Make sure you open up good dialect amongst your peers and just have this discussion. Don't be so quick to want to argue, but actually just have a normal, open conversation. You'll be surprised how that goes. So again, thank you for tuning in to Coffee Talk Podcast, and we out of here. Peace and love to y'all.